From the beautiful city of Los Angeles, California, we bring you the Gimme Three Podcast. All right, today on the Gimme Three Podcast, we've got a very special guest, everybody, an incredible filmmaker whose short films have screened at Oscar-qualifying festivals worldwide. She's an alum of We Screenplay's Diverse Voices Lab and Black Magic Collective's feature initiatives, and she currently serves as the executive director for the Alliance of Women Directors, a wonderful organization that both LADFF and the Gimme Three Podcast are proud to be partnering with this year. Please welcome to the show, Kylie Eaton. Kylie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Now, we're going to get into AWD, Alliance of Women Directors, shortly. But since you're a filmmaker, so many of our listeners are filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers, I want to start by talking about your journey as a writer, director, and how you got your start in the film industry.
Absolutely. Oh, gosh. Okay, so I have to go back far. So, I grew up loving movies. I think like all of us who got into this business, but I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, had no connection to the industry. And, growing up, I wanted to be a writer because I loved storytelling. And I didn't really know that making movies was a job.
Right.
And then I got a scholarship between my junior and senior year of high school to go to UCLA, had a film camp for high schoolers. And so I came out to LA and was, overwhelmed by the size and the size of the campus alone for UCLA. And it was like a week-long camp and we did everything. We had to write it, shoot it, edit it. And so I just had a crash course in filmmaking. And I was so appreciative of that experience. And it was great to see I like writing. I can bring this into it. I can bring in, the quintessential 90s kid running around with a camcorder. That I can bring this into it. I can, use all these skills that I have in other areas to do that. So all that to say that really piqued my interest. And I applied to film schools and got into Chapman. And so that's where I went. And I think people always ask me about film school, and I think the best thing that people get out of it is the people and the community that you build.
Right.
And so, a group of us from our year after graduation moved up to LA and started our careers together. And so that's kind of when my professional life starts in the entertainment industry. My first job out of college was at what was then 20th Century Fox Television, which is no more.
Rip.
It was 6 different things and then it just disappeared.
Yeah.
But for the time that I was there, it was actually quite a fun time because it was when it was the end of 24 and it was the beginning of Glee. And so very cool shows that, we would watch cuts of on our lunch break. And it was a really fun time. I worked as the assistant to the head of post-production. And so I learned a lot, not just about post, but just how the TV industry worked and how it functioned. And, got to go to scoring sessions and got to, go on set, being on the lot. So that was just a great sort of holistic education. I think in film school, you're getting the theory and the practice of holding a camera, editing, but you're not necessarily learning about the business side of it. So that was a great crash course. And I loved my time there, although it was on the West Side and I live in Burbank, and that was tough. Woo! That was a tough commute for 3-4 years, but I had a great experience there. And then from that, I really was inspired, I think, by just being around editors all the time to start editing. And I did a lot of freelance editing. It was something I loved in college too. Those were always my favorite classes. I did that, and sort of on the other side of the spectrum, I started doing some treatment writing. I have some graphic design training. So, I kind of was playing on both sides, pre-production, post-production. And then I just had a friend in a band who was I need a music video. And I think it's such a cliche. I'm sure 90% of directing careers start this way, where I was yeah, okay, I can do that. I write all these comments for commercials and music videos. I do, I cut so many, great, I can direct it. So I did that, and, I directed music videos for probably about 5 years, a good 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was, you have to be young to do it. It takes so much,
Yeah.
such long hours. You're making peanuts, like it's intense, but it was also really creative. And, I got lucky with a lot of projects where I just got to use my creative brain and like think of out of the box, wacky ideas with artists and collaborate. And so that was cool. And it was a really immediate sense of like, I remember doing an Owl City music video, and then he like posted on his Instagram or Facebook, who knows at that time, but he posted on his social media, like playing it at his concert, and so it was like, oh wow, like people see this, people see my work, it's connecting with an audience. So that was great. And then, definitely kind of burned out of that and started focusing more on the writing side of things and the narrative side. So as you mentioned, I've, directed, I think at this point, like 5 or 6 short films. I've written a host of screenplays. I've done the labs. I've done the festival circuit, and at this point I'm in a position where a lot of directors end up, which is trying to make their first feature. And,
right.
I think for me right now, I feel very lucky that I have this amazing job where I get to support directors all day long. I have a 3-year-old, and so that keeps me very busy. And I just get to be sort of creative when I want to be creative, and I get to write the things I want to write. And there's no sort of like immediate pressure. It's like when the right idea comes, I get to dive into that and really just sort of focus on building up the goodwill, building up the savings account, building up, the right ideas for when the time comes to make that feature.
Absolutely. I hear all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned starting with directing in music videos, and that's kind of what I did too. And
nice.
For our aspiring filmmakers listening to this, or filmmakers who are just getting started, like music videos, as you mentioned, it's a young person's game for sure. But it's a great way to kind of find your voice and sharpen your tools and like really learn about visual storytelling. And they're fun, they're just a lot of fun.
They're fun. And there's like different kinds. Like sometimes bands just want to do purely performance videos, and that's super fun because you can get weird and creative, and who cares about any sort of continuity, all that kind of stuff. And then sometimes you want to do something that's more like story based. And like you said, you really get to build your visual storytelling tools because you don't have dialogue, you don't have, sound mixing, like, which is kind of the great thing about music videos is like, okay, well, that takes half of the sort of logistics out of the equation. You're not recording sound, you're not posting sound.
Right.
And you get to just focus on the visual side of things. So they're such a great way to learn and sort of expand your creative vocabulary.
So you're a writer, and I ask a lot of my writer friends these 2 questions just because as a writer myself, I'm always fascinated by everybody's answers.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has different answers. So number 1 is, what is your writing process like? And I know you kind of talked about like some, when the right idea comes to you, that's when you dive in. But when you've got the idea coming to you and you're in the flow of a piece, what is your writing process like?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard to answer because I think it's different for every project I've ever written.
For sure.
I think there was a really good period of my life where I like was very consistent, was like I write for an hour every morning. I stay on top of things, and that's not currently where I'm at. But
well, you have a 3-year-old.
She does take up some time there in the mornings. But, I think when I get into it, I've done it both ways. I have done extensive outlining, and then I've done just total seat of my pants first draft.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's every time I do it, I'm like, oh, well, that's the way you're supposed to do it. And then the next one I go to, I'm like, oh, well, I don't have it all mapped out, but I'm just like burning to start and I don't want to lose the momentum. So I'm just going to start and do it. And then, I end up halfway through the draft and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm halfway there. So I think it's just that you really have to let the project dictate it. I've spent so long outlining a short and then written a feature without any outline, so it's not even about what the length is, what the format. I think it's really the story, and it's in, you know, whatever part of your life you're in, whatever you're feeling inspired by. I think it all kind of shapes that. Yeah. So I think the thing is, like, I have no standard process except for I try to honor the story where it takes me and not get overly concerned. I spent many years being overly concerned of, like, I'm not a real writer if I don't write for an hour every day, or I'm not a real writer if I don't do XYZ. And at this point, I'm like, you know what? I'm a storyteller. The stories come in different forms. They come out in different ways, and just really, like, not stressing about it as much. I think that's the worst thing you can do.
That's great advice. And it's so, I relate so much to what you're saying, because I'm kind of the same way, where every project that comes along, it's like, well, actually, I want to do it this way now. And it's like, the like you said, the project dictates kind of the flow and the process. I also, like, even though I've written like multiple features, like every time I'm starting a new one, it seems like I've like forget. I'm like, wait a second. How do I do this again?
Every time I'm like, I can't do this. I'll never be able to do this again. I don't know how I did it last time. It's never going to happen again. And I feel like I hear that from writers of all disciplines, you know, novels, screenplays, all of it. It just, because each of them is a different, you know, mountain to climb. No two are the same. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
And then my second prong of that is, what does Kylie's writing heaven look like? What is your perfect writing scenario?
I don't think I have a perfect writing scenario. Maybe it's because I've gotten it. We like did a little bit of work on our house about 4 years ago now, and one thing that I really wanted was an office. Mm-hmm. So we had a little, like, she shed built in our backyard. It is 8 feet by 10 feet, because that is as big as you can make it without getting a permit in Burbank.
Nice.
It's 8 feet by 10 feet. And, like, you know, the inside is like lined in plywood. I was like, don't even paint it. Like, I want it like natural and rustic feeling. And I have like bookshelves that line one side and have all my like treasures on them, and my Legos, and, you know, all my nerdy things, and all my books, of course. And so that's, you know, where I'm coming to live from. And it's a really special little place, because it's only mine. You know, my daughter can't get into it.
Nice.
My husband, you know, if he knocks, he's allowed in. But, you know, it looks out over this tree we have in our backyard that's amazing and beautiful. And, you know, it's just an incredibly comfortable environment that I feel like it's almost like going back to being a kid and having your own bedroom, where you just feel, you shut the door and it's like your world, and you don't worry about like anyone else's concept of what the space should be. And, you know, that's how I feel in here. It's just, it might be crazy right now and messy, but it's like, okay, well, no one else cares. So I think just learning to love the space that you're in, even when it's like, again, I go back to times in my life where I was like, if I don't have a clean desk, I don't have a clean mind. I can't focus on a script if I have a messy desk, or, you know, all these like excuses that we make to ourselves.
Totally.
And at this point, I'm like, I love this little shed, and whatever state it's in, it's my safe space to write in.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Thanks.
So let's switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about Alliance of Women Directors, an amazing organization. If you can, tell our audience about AWD and then how you got involved with the organization.
Absolutely. So Alliance of Women Directors was formed in 1997. We are a nonprofit that advocates for and supports women and gender expansive directors in film, TV, and new media. It was born in Los Angeles. It was a handful of women in a living room who said, we've been through the DWW program. We've made the shorts. We do this program. We do the screening. We've made it. And it turns out no one cared, right? And we're talking the 90s. So we're talking when numbers were somehow even worse than they are now. So that small group of people in the past nearly 30 years has grown now to over 800 members across North America. We have a South branch run out of Atlanta. We have an active events committee in New York. And the core of what we do is support our members through artist development programs. We do probably about, depending on the month, 5 to 8 events every month.
Wow.
A mix of, workshops that are really craft-based. We bring in people to talk about the business side of stuff. So learning how to pitch better, learning how to make your resume and real industry standard. So some career tools there. We do a lot of community building. So we'll get together with, like-minded groups, whether it be women composers or, other film groups, other nonprofits. And we do a lot of like speed dating mixers, just trying to give our directors a diverse pool to hire from because we want to practice what we preach. So that's kind of the core of what we do. We have a couple specialty fellowships. We have Rising Directors, which is for first-time feature filmmakers. We support them over the course of a year. They come in attached to a feature script, and we kind of get them ready to take it out to market. We support them creating a proof of concept short. We meet with tons of executives. They meet with, again, people that help coach them on their pitching, on their specific pitches for those projects, and just really get it to a point where, they could walk into any room and be ready to sell that movie. Then our Black Directors Advancement Initiative and our Mentor Latina Directors Fellowship. And those are mentorship-based cohorts that, in addition to like matching them one-on-one with mentors, they also have sort of like specialty workshops throughout the year that address more specific barriers for those groups and, how to overcome those. And as well as just like the social aspect of it has been really important, creating a community sort of within the community and giving them resources, tools, and just, the support of knowing you're not going through it alone. I often hear that people join AWD for the workshops and stay for the community. And I take great pride in that because I think it's a wonderful group of people. And yeah, so those are our sort of like main things that we do. We also started last year something called Back to Set, which is a 2-day directing symposium. It's over the course of 2 days. We do 10 hands-on workshops, masterclasses, some panels, and it's all about the craft and career of directing. It's open to all genders, any level. Anyone can buy a ticket and come out. And it's mostly led by a lot of what we call our icon members, who are, distinguished directors, women and gender expansive directors who have been nominated this year in the drama category for the Emmys that just came out. It's half AWD icon members. So that's
amazing.
Exciting. Yeah. So, that level of directors that are like coming in and teaching and really sort of also demystifying the process for some of these things. Like we did a mock production meeting for a TV episode, because if you've never directed TV before, that's a whole different thing, than like the indie world where we're run and gun. It's like, you're not even as the director running that meeting. So like learning who does what and what crew is in charge of what is important to have that knowledge when you get into those spaces. So it's all about giving access, giving information that's not gate kept, as we do all year long at AWD. And then this is just, Back to Set is in a very condensed 2-day period. So that is all of the educational stuff, all the community building stuff. And then outside of that, we're really trying to advocate in the entertainment industry, but also just in the broader movie going community about the issue of, the lack of gender representation in the director's chair. Mm-hmm. I've had, experiences where I went to last year, American Express does a nonprofit leadership academy that I got chosen for. It was in New York, and it was nonprofit leaders from across all sectors from across North and South America. So I think there were 2 entertainment ones there, and like the rest of the 80 were, workforce development, kids, hunger, environment, tech, things like that. And every time I sort of introduced myself and introduced the organization that I was, the ED of, that people would be like, oh, are there not, is that like why does that exist? And I would explain to them, we have new numbers now this year, which is last year, only 8% of the top films were directed by women and gender expansive directors. And then sort of explaining further what that means, right? Because sometimes if you're not in the industry, you're like, okay, the director like directs things, but really 2 pieces of like, okay, what stories actually make it to that point, and what are we seeing it through? What gaze are we seeing it through? What lens are we seeing it through? And so really, we're always trying to figure out, how do we make people more aware of the situation and the benefit for them if we can improve this, right? Because if we can diversify directors and we can diversify storytellers and who has access to that capital to make those stories, then audiences are going to get such a broader range of films and television shows to watch. They will be more represented on screen, each individual. And so it's really just about trying to figure out how do we make everyone aware of the problem and really start to make that shift. So that advocacy piece is a big part of what we're trying to lean into.
And it's an important piece, and it's what has attracted our nonprofit, Los Angeles Diversity Film Festival, to your organization. And, like why we have, I think, so much in common, and we've collaborated with AWD in the past, and super excited to be collaborating again this year. And like you said, like so many of your members say that they sign up for the workshops and stay for the community, because I think that's so important, because as artists, I think it's important for us to kind of like give back to the industry and to artists, and to kind of like share our knowledge and help lift each other up. That's just like how this industry, if you want to call it an industry, is how this art form, I think, works. And when it's like, firing on all cylinders is when it's most beneficial, when you're surrounding yourself with a community,
I mean, I think back to, the olden days before YouTube, before online tutorials, and everything was learned at the side of someone else, apprenticeships and crafts were taught hand in hand, someone standing right beside you and sort of like passing that knowledge down. And a lot of the concern outside of the financial concerns of the industry shifting away from Los Angeles is, who are people going to learn from? Who are people in LA going to pass that knowledge down to? And that's an entirely different conversation. But I think you make a good point of like, film is an art, and the only way it survives is if we sort of keep building off of the last generation.
So speaking of that community, we're really happy to announce officially here on the Gimme Three podcast that this September, Los Angeles Diversity Film Festival, proud to be partnering with Alliance of Women Directors. We are going to be hosting an outstanding block of short films, all directed by AWD members. That's going to be a blast. Yeah. If you're an AWD member, there's also going to be discounted badges for y'all at LADFF. And we're also going to be awarding a female or gender expansive filmmaker from this year's LADFF program with a special award. And that winner will receive a 1-year membership to AWD. So we're stoked about it. Kylie, are you stoked about it?
I'm so stoked about it. Thank you so much for, the support that you're showing to our directors. I think one of the things when we talk about access, certainly getting people's work seen is a part of that. And I think dedicating a block to showcasing the films of our members is, obviously we really appreciate it. And it's such an important part of our mission when we're able to partner with organizations like yours and give our members a little bit more access, a little bit more ability to connect with their audience. And, I do everything I can to, filmmaking is an expensive career. So you're talking about discounted passes. Like we fight so hard for discounts for our members for everything. So we always appreciate organizations that offer our members a discount. It's such a help in a industry and career where sometimes it feels like you're paying to work,
Yeah, for sure.
So we appreciate that. And we're so excited to be amongst your lineup and amongst such, respected and amazing festival with great work across the board. Again, that's, such a boon for our members to be able to screen in such a capacity.
Thank you. That's the honor. The love is mutual. The love is mutual. So, and yeah, if you're an AWD member, grab a pass at a discounted rate and come for the AWD block, but stay for others, because we've got amazing female filmmakers throughout the festival. It's not just the AWD block. So yeah, it's gonna be a great weekend. September 17th through the 19th are the official dates of the festival. Before we get into the Gimme Three segment, of course, I do want to ask one more question about AWD and you as a filmmaker, because people ask me this question, you know, in my connection with LADFF.
Yeah.
How has AWD helped you or changed you as an artist and in your own personal work as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I mean, I think about this a lot. I think even beyond that, it's changed me as a person. So I joined as a member in 2017, and it was sort of a weird time in my life where I was still in this like, I'm a shy person phase. Like, I don't scared of, you know, going to these snobby LA networking events and having to talk to people and feeling like they don't think I have anything to contribute, blah, blah, blah. So I go to my first AWD event and everyone is just genuinely so welcoming, and no one has an agenda. No one's there to like get something out of you. It's just a place to connect and like learn from each other. And so immediately I felt comfortable, and immediately I was like, okay, like this is a vibe that I like, and I'm gonna stick with it. So I really believe when you're sort of involved in any of these organizations, I mean, the best way to get to know people and to really take advantage is to volunteer. So I started volunteering maybe my second year as a member. And at that point it was like, can you proofread the newsletter? I was like, great. I'm a great proofreader. I love doing that. Happy to do it. Let's debate about the Oxford comma all day long. You know, so that's how I started. And I just felt such an amazing kinship with these fellow artists. And you know, from there, I was on the board for 5 years before I got hired as executive director, and felt very privileged to be able to, you know, shape some programming and bring some ideas and really just help the organization grow. I think that's always been my sort of goal with this, is to bring this to as many people as possible. And so I think the way it's changed me is I've really found such a passion for nonprofit work. And I think it's always the thing where it's easier to do something on behalf of someone else, right? You know, before this crowdfunding, fundraising, terrifying to me. But I've done it so much now for AWD, not scared to ask anyone to like, hey, do you want to partner? Do you want to sponsor an event? Do you want to donate? Like, here's all the benefits and reasons why you should. And so getting over like that fear, I've become so much better at pitching, because I pitch this organization all day, every day, in person, over Zoom, every person I meet. You know, so I think there's some really practical things that I've gotten out of it as a filmmaker. But, you know, I think that the heart of it is I've just seen the passion and the determination of our members and people in this community, and how much this art form means to them, and how it can really change lives and change hearts and change minds. And so, like I said at the beginning, maybe this isn't like the season of my life where I'm consistently working as a director, but working to support directors is just truly very fulfilling for me. So it's really just been a joy to be a part of, and I feel very lucky.
That's amazing. Kylie, before we get into the Gimme Three segment, tell our audience where they can learn more about Alliance of Women Directors, where they can sign up for your newsletter, where they can follow you guys.
Absolutely. So our website is allianceofwomendirectors.org. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can see all of our programming. We have a calendar. You can see sort of what kind of events we put on. And I would be remiss if I did not mention we have 2 levels of membership. We have directing membership, which is for women and gender expansive directors who have directed at least one piece aired by a third party, so a short that's aired at a festival. In addition to that, we have our ally membership, which is open to absolutely anyone, any gender, any film discipline, any discipline of, you know, anyone can join. There's no requirements. What it ends up being is a lot of like writers, producers, actors. We try to bring our allies in when we're doing a blocking workshop and need actors for it, we call on our allies. When we're, we just did a program called Scenes for Reels, and our ally members were the cinematographers and the editors and the composers on it. So really building more of that community in is so important. And it's been really successful for us in terms of sort of building out that community, and also for people that are directors and just haven't made that project that's, aired at a festival yet, been programmed, whatever it is, they're working their way up to it. So you can find all of that information at allianceofwomendirectors.org, and then follow us on Instagram at AWD_directors. You can see all of our exciting updates, as well as we try and share as much of our members' projects, their news, their awards, all of that on our page as well.
Beautiful. All right, Kylie. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty here. This is the name of the game. This is the Gimme Three segment on the Gimme Three podcast.
Yes.
Kylie, you're going to give us 3 film recommendations, films that have either inspired you or inspired your work. What's your first one?
Okay. So what I did when I was thinking of this list is I really went back and was like, what foundationally changed me shaped me as a filmmaker. So these are all like childhood favorites.
Yeah.
So the first one had to be Star Wars: A New Hope.
Yeah.
I was, one of the sad parts of my life is I don't remember seeing it for the first time because it was just constantly on in our house growing up. I have 2 older siblings who are 8 and 11 years older than me. And it was just like, it was Star Wars was on all the time. I had the Ewok playset, all of that. But really thinking about it now, like, I love sci-fi and fantasy. I love writing it. I love reading it. I love watching it. And I think so much of that comes just from that early exposure and that sort of, feeling that you get when Luke, makes the shot, when he hits his target. Like, all of those exciting moments, I feel like really shaped me into what I love to both create and consume.
Did you have the VHS that they when they re-released them when it was like 1997 or something?
Yeah.
And they, on all the VHSs, it was either before or after the movie, they had like little featurettes about the making of. That was like one of my first exposures into how this stuff is done. And that, I remember that being like a formidable experience for me, was like watching behind the scenes. Yeah. And I was like, whoa.
I talk about that with people a lot, of like, if I, if I hadn't been, coming of age in an era where that became sort of standard on DVDs to have that behind the scenes stuff, like, I wouldn't have known what a director was. I wouldn't have known anything. That was my exposure to the film industry and the different film professions, was that, and MTV's Making the Video. That was very important to my filmmaking education.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, excellent first choice.
Okay. Thank you. So this is going to be the odd one out of the 3 for my second one, which is Sleepless in Seattle. Again, thinking back to childhood, it was just such a comfort movie. Like, Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks were mom and dad. They were just it was such a creative idea to have a rom-com where the characters don't meet until the end, right? Directed by the rom-com master herself, Nora Ephron. And I just, I feel like some of those classic 90s movies were so simple and like just stuck to the structure of a great screenplay. There's nothing gratuitous in the filmmaking. There's no overwrought shots. There's no, nothing that is like trying too hard, but it just works as a film. And, I love the callback to An Affair to Remember, because I loved old movies growing up. And I don't know, for me, it's just such a well done film that I know I'm going to have an emotional response to every time I watch it.
That Sleepless in Seattle is one of my like 2 or 3 go-to plane movies. When I'm on a plane.
That's a good one.
I love putting on Sleepless in Seattle. It's just perfect. It's just a perfect, lovable film.
Yeah. 100%.
Marsha, Or should I call you Dr. Fieldstone?
Dr. Marcia.
Dr.
Dr. Marcia.
I don't mean to be rude.
Oh, and I don't want to invade your privacy.
Oh, sure you do.
Go on, Sam. I'm listening. Sam?
We had a pretty tough time there at first.
Mm-hmm.
But we're dealing with it. And Jonah and I will get along just fine again as soon as I break his radio.
I have no doubt that you're a wonderful father. You know, you can tell a lot from a person's voice.
You certainly can.
But something must be missing if Jonah still feels that you're under a cloud. And just a few questions. Are you sleeping at night?
He doesn't sleep at all.
How do you know that?
I live here, Dad.
Look, it's Christmas. Maggie, my wife, she really did it. I mean, she loved. She made everything beautiful. And it's just tough this time of year. I mean, any kid needs a mother.
Could it be that you need someone just as much as Jonah does?
Yes.
Don't answer that. Let's get into that right after these messages. Sam, Jonah, don't go away. If you've just tuned in, we're talking to Sleepless in Seattle, and we'll be right back after this break with your listener response.
What is she talking about?
This is when other people get to call in and dump on what you said.
Oh.
Get Stainometer, and I
Well,
promise
this is really
your
fun.
old carpet will
And helpful.
red.
Okay, I got my last one, which is The Matrix.
Oh, cool.
So again, very formative moment in my life. I went and got my wisdom teeth out, and then the first thing I did was go to the video store to rent a bunch of videos to watch in my, very dramatic recovery.
Right.
Put on The Matrix. My mouth was sore. My mom gave me some medicine, which I didn't know was like a painkiller. So the first time I ever had a painkiller of any strength, I was watching The Matrix and I was tripping hard. It was the pill. I don't know if it was The Matrix, but it was just like my mind was like, oh my God, the bullet time. Like, just the whole thing was so exciting and at that point, like, revolutionary. And, just the way the story was approached, the very like mythological feeling to it, but yet futuristic. Like, I was obsessed. I don't even know what else to say about it. It's The Matrix. Like,
It's The Matrix.
That's what it is.
I remember the first time seeing it was also on home video, and I was like at a party with a bunch of other kids my age, and we were like running around and stuff. And the guy whose house it was, he had just rented it, and he put it on the TV, and like the entire party. I don't know why you put it on during a party. Seems like a bad choice, but the entire party, including the kids, we stopped running around. We stopped playing around. Mm-hmm. Everybody stopped talking. And we all just like got transfixed on this movie that was so fresh and so unique at the time.
Yeah. And it, I think it plays into that like Y2K hysteria and
Mm-hmm.
the people trying to wrap their heads around like the digital age and just it fits that moment in time so perfectly, and yet it is still timeless and holds up if you watch it today.
Absolutely. Those are 3 excellent choices, Kylie.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Once again, want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Gimme Three podcast. And once again, we're just so honored to be collaborating with Alliance of Women Directors this year. We're gonna have fun. It's gonna be a good year for us.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate you partnering with us and uplifting our filmmakers.
Well, thank you all for listening to the Gimme Three podcast, and we will see you at the movies.